Hare Krishna, everyone. Alright, let's start with our false ego session. Now, we may not be so aware of our own false ego because we're not discussing that so much in normal temple classes, Bhagavatam classes, or outreach classes, right? How much that false ego actually affects us, right? And we often feel offended, actually, when we near, or challenged. Maybe not offended is not maybe the right word, but internally challenged if we're confronted with that topic. And that's actually the false ego. We go into the defensive. Hey, wait a minute. Right? So if we struggle with the false ego, it's probably good to first be aware how much the false ego is actually troubling us. And a very nice presentation is actually from Devaki Mataji in her book, The False Ego, Our Constant Companion and Troublemaker. It may require, if we're not so aware of our own false ego, how much we every day act upon it, right? It's a good idea to look a little bit deeper into it and become aware. Like I tried to give it a little introduction in the beginning about, just that aspect of defending. But there are so many more aspects. And we can actually actively work on it. We need help for that. And there's another recommendation. We need mentorship. And it's a whole other book from not only from Devaki Mataji, Sheltering Relationships, but there's so many approaches of mentorship, right? So many other books from different spiritual masters in our society, from different yatras and so on. So there's so much more resource on mentorship, but since the false ego, mentorship helps us to engage in devotional service and to purify the false ego. Again, we need to be aware of our false ego, and it's the false ego which actually keeps us away from mentorship as well, because we're so proud and we know it all ourselves much better than anyone else, which is our material conditioning. All right. So let's look about, we all have this understanding, marriage in Krishna consciousness means purification and shelter. All right. And we have some la-la land ideas about how this purification takes place, right? Something along the line, if there are two people living together, and obviously it can't always go according to my ideas, so there have to be compromises and so on. And that's when we're able to navigate and compromise, then ultimately that will purify the false ego, and something like that, or something along those lines, right? There are those ideas of, we're going in one end and come out purify the other end. But we have no idea how that purification takes place. And yes, in a relationship we have to compromise. We have to tolerate different habits of the other person, right? And it may bring about a little bit of humility. We become maybe a little bit more humble. Some of our desires may become purified. But the false ego purification doesn't work like that, actually. The false ego purification doesn't work like that. There are certain things we require in order for our false ego to become purified. And if we go into the Grihasta Ashrama, just understand, let's compromise a little bit and so on. But you're just trampling upon a snake all the time. How do you think, if you trample upon a snake, sooner or later it becomes humble and free of false ego? Forget it. It will fortify itself. If there is not a certain level of peace, let's say, a certain level of understanding what triggers the other person, and the needs are not fulfilled, the false ego will fortify itself. Nothing box is the easiest example almost. Right? Okay, I don't get what I need, so I just take it for myself. I need it, because that's what a man actually needs. Sooner or later, it's too much and he just needs to time out, break, just be away for a week, a month, a year, whatever, Just leave me alone, everyone. And that's when the false ego entrenches itself and just doesn't let anyone near him. Okay? So we have to understand how that purification is meant to take place. And now let's look what we discussed so far. We can see that men and women have sometimes complete opposite needs, completely different needs. And we all know that. We all know men and women are so different. And there's so many misunderstandings. Right? So if we believe that men and women's false ego, or the false ego is expressed in the male body and in the female body, because the false ego is always the same, it becomes conditioned according to the gross body we're in. If we believe that it gets purified, or that we get purified of our false ego, no matter which body we're in the same way, men and women, false ego gets purified in the same way, we're so wrong. How can we think that if we see that men and women are so different? It's not like that. Men and women have different duties to perform, let's put it that way, in order to purify their false ego. There is a different process for a woman, and there is again a different process for a man. And that's what we're going to discuss. And we start with the women. How do the ladies how can the ladies purify their false ego? Especially within the Grihasta Ashrama. And we start with the ladies, and then we continue with the men, and then hopefully we have a little aha effect. Hopefully. I hope I'll be able to express it all in a proper way, in such a way that we can accept it and that it's understood, and then we go from there. Again, a little bit further. But that's the next step, getting that actually right within our minds and heart. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.